Adofonity for you mobibia kwa baby medoba Alpha OneTV so and in say a year the leaders in Parliament a year Afenyo markings ni a year the majority leader so a year Mahama Ayariga and my name omoye media briefing kaka na Afenyo markings akase we na no si kika nsem na kwa esi wonim nie nkoso wani sim but kika no keke ena niema ini kwanso kano elo twitwa kesi go the government the current government so ne drew Mahama Ayariga so no one penny ma Afenyo markings kwa no say niema okanyina from A to Z ni nyina nya no correct Easter ze wo betnas no wasua ade no wasua niema wo social media no wasua niema wo NDC mo no you are just talking ka talking kwa dia enko bia bitima kase bi a chese nim guase a ye beka Mahama Ayariga edi ambo Afenyo markings tiri no enya sekretwa awo tu nyina so no because yakwa say niema wo kenyina no ni fat bia you are just talking and na Mahama Ayariga can say Wont now emasa intro ya wutwane nkoso inde beya tenase na niema koso no obe ne obisua kam ne ngore da senior ba ne de nkomadwana ne atoaso.
So a 5% decline. Similarly, the share of those who felt the country was moving in the wrong direction rose from 20% to 23%, indicating growing unease about the country's policy trajectory. So, whereas the majority leader focused on the July figures and perhaps did not want to delve into the September figures, we, the minority, have looked at it holistically, done a comprehensive, outlook, July and September. So you don't go to July and forget about the present. And then the Mr. President job approval rating, yes, he was right, it was 73%, but that's all that was in July. As we speak, it has dipped. The disapproval rating has climbed to 22%. So we are looking at a 6% drop, which is huge, within just 3 months. When Ghanaians were asked about governance, the percent who described it as very good or good, 54% in September, while those who viewed it as poor or very poor increased from 10% to 16%. The consistent downward movement within just 2 to 3 months shows that Ghanaians are beginning to lose confidence in the government's handling of national affairs. The optimism that greeted the administration's early months is fading, replaced by growing skepticism about its ability to deliver on its promises. And these are the issues. One, the COVID-19 levy. They pledged that COVID-19 health recovery levy in its next budget is yet the tax remains in force pending passage of a VAT amendment. Who does that? Who does that? They spoke about it in opposition. You come into government and you're failing to do that. And let's not forget, when they said the e-levy was not good and they were scrapping the e-levy, they introduced a D-levy, the Dumso levy. They tried to suspend it, claiming that they were going to consult civil society. But they have since implemented it. And in fact, they have increased utility tariffs twice this year alone, in excess of 5%, 14%, 14%. So you say you are taking e-levy out of the economy because it was a nuisance tax. But in its place, you have burdened Ghanaians with utility tariffs, especially electricity, going as much as 14%. So it clearly reflects what Ghanaians are seeing. Is it a matrical agenda, or, however you may want to describe it. But the reality is that Ghanaians are losing confidence in the government. Then the road contractors arrears. They are dealing with only 4 billion out of the planned 13 billion. What is happening? They promised that they were going to pay 13 billion. That was contained in the media review. But
I'm always watching them on CNN. There was so much misrepresentation of what was happening, to a point where CNN had to employ somebody for doing a fact check. And I noticed that either Joy FM or City FM, was Joy FM, also adopted that strategy. So I urge you, given the level of dishonesty and misrepresentation that sometimes I see in our politics, I expect you not just to convey what has been said, but also to build your own capacity to do fact-checking, so that when you are conveying, you can also, as Minister, presented to Parliament. And on the basis of the economic policy document and the various sectoral policies that they were introducing, he then presented an estimate of how much money is needed to implement those policies. And he had, at that time, 88 members in the chamber, and they debated the economic policy document sector by sector. Then they are members of the various committees, and all those committees took the sector by sector policy documents, analyzed them at committee retreats, invited all the agencies, and the agencies appeared before them and explained each and every one of those policy measures. A lot of these policy measures were already captured in our national campaign manifesto, if you recall. And you journalists quizzed us, we explained and explained those policy measures in the national campaign that took place in December 2024. Then our first budget came, and in the budget policy document, we captured the same policies. And then we budgeted for it. We brought it to this House. His members had the opportunity to scrutinize the policy document, debated it, and we all approved the policy documents in the chamber. Then the figures, the estimates for implementing those policies were brought to us. We debated the estimates again and approved them. So I'm surprised that this morning he will come and say that no policy document on any of those programs have been brought to Parliament. So fact check one, what you have said is not true. Then let me also indicate that I'll be surprised that as a former majority leader and leader of government business, you will say that the ministers have failed to come and tell us anything about those programs and policies. Because the tools for getting them to come and brief you on the policies are in your hands. If you have forgotten what the NDC promised in its manifesto, and if you have forgotten what is in the economic policy that you yourself approved, and you want to be reminded, you can ask a minister a question. So the tool of asking questions is for you to bring ministers to the floor of the House to brief you. Because you cannot also say that as a politician, as an opposition, it is only when facts are stated in the House that you take them as an indication of government policy or program. You admit that each and every one of those policies and programs have been launched. At the launch events, the policies are described, the programs are described, you journalists cover the events, and you broadcast it. And so I will be surprised if you say that the ministers have not come to Parliament to come and brief you, so you don't know what is happening. You should be reading newspapers. You should be reading the internet. You should be reading the news portals of the various media.
They are only paid 4 billion. Many of the roads that contractors were on, they've abandoned the site. So we ask, when are they going to deal with it? Then let us deal with the cost of living pressures. Whereas they would say that inflation has eased, we would want to look at the realities on the market. The recent SHS students who are going, parents are complaining because they have to buy everything. Everything. So it really negates the import of the free SHS. And even how students were placed. If somebody is in Winneba, and then you place the person where parents complain to the media. It's not the minority that is saying so. Parents have had to complain about how their children were placed. So crucially, we cannot say that the inflation has helped to stabilize prices. No, that is not the case. And then if you monitor the opportunity for jobs, we really getting nothing. We have not seen any serious job creation effort. For the private sector, for instance, they came to cancel the 1D, 1F. They say they don't need the 1D, 1F. But the 1D, 1F was a major boost for the private sector. We, MPP, are center-right ideologists. We believe in the private sector. The private market creates opportunity for the industry to grow so that they can employ more. They are social democrat, center-left. We don't know what they intend to plan. But we cannot say that they have shown seriousness in terms of job creation for the private sector. That is why the Ghana Statistical Service report that youth unemployment is averaging 32% for the age bracket 15 to 24%. High joblessness amidst rising living costs reflect a shortfall, translating the macroeconomic gains to house welfare. Now let's come to the health sector. Health sector workers have been complaining. We know that over 200 junior doctors who are worked for 10 months without salaries and more than 800 who qualify as medical doctors still await posting. In October, we know that Junior Doctors Association threatened a nationwide strike, withdrawing outpatient and emergency services to protest these delays. Similarly, we know the nurses and midwives have also protested 8 to 10 months of salary arrest, forcing management promises by revealing poor workforce financing. Again, this cannot be said that a reset government that is making things anew, is doing to help revamp the economy. If you forget about critical sectors of the economy, your frontline workers, definitely it demonstrates some lack of priority on your part as a government. Education, the workforce there. Many of our qualified teachers complain that the sector has not been able to place them, or even those who were placed have not been paid. The unresolved service conditions has also led to labor unrest. Newly posted teachers have gone 8 months plus without salaries. Any infrastructure improvement in terms of data regarding infrastructure facelift, dormitory, classroom construction, telling us what Govt is doing. So far, nothing. If there is any sector, we challenge them. We are ready for them. So we would stay here for now, and then I'm sure after the majority leader has made known his remarks, we will deal with the other sectors as and when your questions come up. Thank you so much indeed, and God bless you for your attention.
Before we take the address of the leader of government business, let me acknowledge the deputy, Madam Patricia Appiaje.
Houses that are covering those events. They are all platforms for monitoring policy and policy implementation. The info analytics that you have cited here, did he come to brief you in Parliament? The man didn't come to brief you in Parliament. But you've gone to dig it out, you've gotten that information, and you are here relying heavily on that information. So how come that you don't want to rely on the information of all the media houses who covered Ejumawura, who covered all these other, programs, the Big Push, the Coders program, the apprenticeship training program, all these were launched. They were covered extensively by media houses. They were reported. So if you can sift through media reports to see the reports of info analytics, sift through the same media reports, and you'll find all the reports on all these programs that were launched. Let me also indicate that we are not claiming that in less than 360 days, every single mess that we inherited will be corrected. We're not saying that. If nurses who have been trained have not yet been placed, it doesn't take 360 days to place all nurses that have been trained. It doesn't take 360 days to place all teachers that have been trained, because you know that the structure of the economy was devastated by the level of mismanagement that we saw, which informed the elections. Ghanaians themselves saw it. That's the basis for the vote and the margin of victory that the NDC enjoyed in the last election. Ghanaians themselves saw the level of devastation of the economy. And we know that it will take a long time to fix it. But the evidence, as testified by everybody that I quoted yesterday, from the IMF to the World Bank, to the African Development Bank, to Ghanaian economists, to everybody, the evidence is clear that this government is making a lot of effort to fix the economy, stabilize the city, pay our debts, manage our expenditure, and then bring us to a level where the economy can be on a sound footing for the private sector to be able to create the jobs. When you talk about job creation and you say you are center right, center left, and etc., all those ideologies now agree that you need a strong, vibrant private sector to create jobs, because all of them have evolved to a point where they accept that the state has some limitations in its capacity to create jobs itself. Because in the end, you will just create a huge banks are hovering around 50%, 30%, 40%. Which private sector can survive borrowing at 50%, 40%, 30%? Which private sector? No private sector will survive borrowing at that level. What is going to happen is that they will become uncompetitive, and all of them will become importers of finished goods. None of them will produce locally, because you can't borrow at 30, 40, 50%, and then produce and compete with Chinese firms that are borrowing at 3, 4%. If you recall, in 2024, there was a huge issue between Ghanaian traders and Nigerian traders. You are all here, you remember? It's a huge battle. Why were Nigerian traders here? Why should we accept Nigerian traders? And Nigerian traders were undercutting us. They were selling lower than the prices that Ghanaian traders were selling. The answer is simple. They were borrowing at a lower rate in Nigeria. So when they came to Ghana, they could easily reduce their prices, whereas the Ghanaian traders were borrowing at a very high interest rate. So when they
anytime be a Afenyo markings, being a platform piano, or person rubbish this government, Kikan sema inim at the federal government and no call Parliament with DC. Nima or kafa chief of staff on and you no correct. Say what temnity amount for Germany and the other. And I also can be say briefing so. So can be say government bano can say provide a juma and junior doctors for no can portrait him as a moko nationwide strike. Nina ya dia muntu ya manfo any omokanya dade. Na the entire as a junior doctors for now come as no. Ramane form that time. Omunye juma time being. Why was saying to moka almost can came after now. Near when you koso and so person the blame no at the current government and our Bemnancy or the kind of mess are you people created during your tenure. Sanya when you now koso and so be ho and already. Oh, can say the MPP and more connoting things armor na more bemumu yin papa. What I can say, only doom so levy aba, only e levy for only D levy naba. Sanya when you kaki kanyo. Sebi, it doesn't make any sense. Say I will say that I D levy no more about baby. Now, Tamana no the emission tax near that they ban the baby will be crashing rock but I will say more tax. So doom so levy and say be a more GTO or more G the iron papa. Send a doom so no a swat just things amount for compose so say I'm the mundo light kakra. Now more say machine tax more the heading. Covid tax now COVID compute train monastan and the zogo COVID more the heading. I know a big general can you pay. You know who send a Mahama Ayariga is your good in massive punch as any asim katuan. Go don't think me na and can you pay. Now found the now uncle. No, I can't just say a DBA Afenyo magazine back in piano, who media for no, who make you somebody, who be check it, or be a NDC site ni other site legit and I'm check and second mind ma post it on social media so cause be brina ayen trop and right now in some Kesi no ayen trop no judging ni intia ayen trop no can't have your marking say Wont on tenase no head no suya dear no me yun jai in semi brebe or Kesi and what commendation the more catch Afenyo markings and say Afenyo markings in the jokes. Afenyo markings in the jokes. Send ya na Mama ya gisi kasa cheche ni memuno. Uti wonye na onse ni mgwasi ya county unti mkwa mpunti na siye. Ama media phone ni shwe ni masisi utrase. Sema kenyi na anya no correct. Bia mpana mu yo 1D 1F awabijina ho. A portrait said the answer the at the Pebiama, a mind is for by no my tram near the adi. A moon tram saying, one din why for no. Sabi say you alleged moody ball chrono. Tamana more office no. And no, and I'm Ayariga, a good in massive power Parliament media briefing as the Kesi as and good. Charging another comment so the victims were share more down for saying a biashi. I have one Disĝracës.